This month, we're going back millennia, the BCE, which is before Common Era or before Christ. But as per the vibe of our pod, we are using the secular term for the same time period. This episode is to ponder on the mysticism, mythology, and parables derived from Greece, which have inspired literature, art, music, films, and our socio-political economic ideology, patriarchy, and policies and more. We are not just attempting, but decisively demystifying the heroines of Greek mythology, specifically the one witchy baddie. Stay hooked. Welcome back to Girl, What Did I Just Read? The podcast where we read books by women and queer authors, spiral about fictional people, and always admit that the problem is ever-changing, but usually men. We read the difficult and stodgy classics, fascinating science fiction, psychological thrillers, detective mysteries, fantastical romantasy, sometimes accidentally read smut on accident. And we promise. And our genres keep expanding like the universe. Welcome back. I have with me again the lovely Shaggy. And I'm Katie.
Hello.
April has us mulling over spring and the idea of renewal, rebirth, rejuvenation, and effectively a new beginning to the year. Chatting a bit on recent Ostara and its connection with nature and even Greek mythology being about controlling nature or governing it.
Can we just take a minute? Can we just take, one Mississippi breath and appreciate our fits and faces today? Guys, this episode, let me tell you, this episode for me was like prepping for an exam. And I mean prepping for an exam in college. It was like I was prepping in this way, okay? I firstly I kept putting off finishing the entire book. I was stuck at this 1/4, the last 1/4 part of the book. I was like, oh, you have to finish this, you have to finish this. So it was like the closer we were coming to the recording date, I then started affixing 1 to 2 hours to crash course my way through. And on the last day, yesterday, let me tell you, I was cramming full on. I was ready to fully word vomit in this exam. I'm fully ready and pumped. But surprisingly, the one thing that kind of kept me afloat while handling this really difficult book, which has plunged me into an existential crisis, we're talking about serious things here. So the one thing that carried me and kept me afloat enough to prep for this book was the fact that I'll get to wear a tiara. I mean, isn't this how one should live life? Do difficult things, but with a little bit of whimsy. Maybe you'll succeed. Who knows? I mean, I'm here. I'm
I
here
love it.
rocking my green eyeshadow, and I think the vibe I'm going for is more like goddess of the bog and the moors and the wetlands. Yeah. While I think Katie is going for a complete
Yep.
Oracle of Delphi look.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you.
Very
I am
classic.
thank you. Well, I wore my sun necklace and I've got gold, and because this was the only kind of dress top that I had that looked a bit Grecian, I guess. And I was like, and I realized I've worn a lot of dark stuff the last couple episodes. So I am repping the House of Helios, who is the father of
Ooh.
our main character, Circe, in the book Circe by Madeline Miller. So that's hence the gold, the sun god Helios, the Titan, who is not one of the Olympian gods. And we'll go into the family tree briefly later on and explain the who's who of Circe and the Greek mythological family tree. So I will let you introduce the book and kind of, delve into the waters of this. I don't know. I was going to say I think I have very different feelings about the book than you do, but this beautiful work that portrays the bullshit that women go through and women presenting people, female presenting people go through. They
Since
were dealing with
BCs.
it back then. Yes, since
Since
the BCE
BCEs.
era. So this really
Not
fired me
now.
up because, yeah, and we're going to have so many soapboxes. So I'm really, really excited about this.
So, our book of this month, Circe, is written by this amazing author called Madeline Miller. Now, she has another book called The Song of Achilles, which I have not read, but I'm assuming it will be about Achilles. And yeah, so this book is like almost a re-dramatization of the life of this one specific character in Greek mythology. And this character, Circe, she, in mythological terms, she is one of the side characters. She is not number one on the call sheet. She's one of those minor side characters, but this author, Madeline Miller, she manages to give her a full interior life and also a life which managed to defy the gods. I mean, yeah, another thing that carries me through these books which put me in an existential crisis, it's mostly that at least someone's defying the gods. I'm like, yeah, little bit of rebellion, sprinkle it in, and and then the material becomes palatable to me. Like little bit of rebellion, anarchy, Sagittarius much anyway. So basically, her entire life, her existence, and every action and consequence that she takes or that she is affected through, that in itself encompasses such a big rebellion, such an outright revolt that even presently women should be putting their heads to. Yeah, let's remember that acts of rebellion, if oppression existed since the BCEs, acts of rebellions have also existed since the BCEs. And good women don't make history. So, hence, we have our witchy baddie, Circe. Now, for centuries, Circe has been treated as this dangerous enchantress, as if the goal of a literal god level witch, a literal god level baddie, as if her goal is to like pull a Brad or a Chad. I mean, are you kidding me? Seriously? This is what I'm supposed to learn from mythology, that, oh, this baddie was like a seductress who was after some Josh. No offense to
Yeah,
Chads,
all the J
Brads, or
names.
Joshes.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
the J
Or,
names especially.
oh, okay, the Joshes.
The
So,
Joshes, the Justins, the Jasons, whoever else.
ooh.
Sorry.
What about Kyle? Kyle is one name that I kind of hear sometimes, but I also don't. Like
It's like
Kylie, I
neutral.
know is popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kyle is
I
like
would
an
say Kyle's
oxymoron.
a neutral for guys. Yeah. I almost named my daughter Kylie. I wanted to name her Kylie after Kylie Minogue,
Ooh.
but then Kylie Jenner was really popular and I didn't want people to think that I named her after Kylie Jenner. So anyway. But yes, yeah, I like where you're going with this.
Yeah. So basically, Circe was a woman who refused to accept, who refused to run by the role that was given to her because she will create her own, like the awesome, badass, god level figure that she is. Okay, but I need to like just go on a side rant a little bit. Um, like before like formally starting this episode, when we were chit chatting a little bit about the parallels that various geographical mythologies have with respect to their either stories or characters or the lessons or the warnings of the story, whatever it is, I was kind of thinking that considering these texts are so extremely old, and I will talk about it from the context of like say Hindu mythology, I kind of wonder if specifically because of British colonization of like 2 to 400 years, I sometimes wonder how much of the Hindu mythology that I understand is through the lens of Judeo Christian values. Because somehow, like, at least from a legal perspective, in laws, I can easily make out where Christian values have made certain laws. Like, for example, in the erstwhile Indian Penal Code, there was a section on adultery, which is a very Judeo Christian concept. Also, the concept of monogamy. We see these values being implemented today in our laws. I mean, of course, the whole adultery section was done away with later on, but it was done away with in this 21st century, not a while back. So sometimes I wonder that what the images that I'm seeing of Shiv and Parvati and Krishna and Kali and these, even the images that I'm seeing, I'm wondering, are these European beauty standard images? Like, it kind of, see, that's the difficulty of being part of a people where your history has sort of been warped and erased. So for me, like, I'm having God fatigue, but on top of that, I'm having a knowledge related existential crisis as well. Because I'm like, am I relying on, what kind of a text am I relying on? Like, what kind of oral history which has been codified? What am I relying on? Is it even correct? Or is it even authentic? So, yeah, so this book put plunged me in that knowledge related existential crisis as well. That what I have been pouring my literary energy into, was it all for nothing? Was it all for a deformed, warped, disfigured text which has no similarity to the way it was originally supposed to be? Am I like wasting my time? Am I in the matrix? Can I hyperventilate a little more?
Existential crisis has come out of this book because I don't know if you mind me getting kind of into it a little bit more, but it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. I think it was what I thought it was going to be. I tried to not read too much into it, but this had been on my list for a long time. So I'm really glad we did this. Also, I do want to mention before I forget, and we might talk about it a little later. Well, we will. We're also doing this because, well, we were supposed to read it and we were supposed to do it for March for Women's Month, Women's History Month, but we chose it because Circe is not a main, but I would say a big character in the Tale of the Odyssey by Homer, of which, if you are not familiar, that epic has been made into a film by Christopher Nolan, and that is coming out, at least in the States, it's coming out July 17th, where Circe, played by Charlize Theron, will be in this. And yeah, so we also just wanted to tie into the film because now we're finally doing something before the media comes, the piece of media comes out. So, hoping I have all the hashtags correct for the SEO when I do the YouTube stuff and the Instagram reels. But yeah, I knew there were going to be like feminist themes and seeing the unfairness of the treatment of Circe, particularly by the men in the book, the male figures. Whereas I think you thought this was going to be a little more like light, I guess. And it's so funny because we
Yeah.
always end up getting into
I
these
thought,
reads where we think they're going to be light. Yeah, and they're heavy.
exactly. I thought these will be more factually conceptual books, which will be a little dense. Like, that's what I thought going into this. I thought it will be like dense material, which would require a lot of research and this and that. But yeah, it's the same thing. Like there's no one to look up to. Everyone's messy. We are
Well, that's
messy.
what I like about it, though.
Yeah, I understand that. Like, I see, but the thing is, now I know that everyone's okay by reading all of say Greek mythology and whatever I know of Hindu mythology, I know that like gods get into shenanigans. Okay. But now I'm going 50 steps back and even questioning whether the shenanigans I'm reading about are correct or not. So I don't know. Maybe this is what existential crises are like. And also, just to go on a side quest, why had to go 50 steps back and start rethinking whether I'm even like engaging with material that I should like be spending time on, because it because it carries authenticity, or it carries some kind of impeachable authoritative value. Yeah. But now the second perspective that came to me, my knowledge existential crisis, it was that where are all the non-male authors? Like, do they not have a life? Do they not have ideologies? What are non-male people doing? Mat- Like, I want to like start speaking in Hindi and ask like, kar kya rahe ho tum log? Which means basically, what are you guys doing? Like, where are non-male authors? Like, how is their point of view just absent, just so starkly absent from history? And despite non-male population being such a big part of creation since our genesis, how have their works either disappeared, or were they never created, or were they taken out of context or out of history altogether? The same way that I look at Indian history very differently from someone who would look at Indian history pre-colonization. So I'm like, where are you people? Like, where is the wealth of knowledge and all of that had to be passed down? Like, I get it. Yes, all the great Greek philosophers are like primarily dudes. We all know that. I mean, people quote like Plato and Aristotle and Socrates like left, right, and center. But where is there nobody else? Like, where is the rest of the gang? And that again, now I'm like, okay, so firstly, I'm not reading possibly authentic texts. Now I'm reading warped POVs as well, with bodies of work which have been practically possibly extinguished. Because how am I getting only one POV majoritively? It bugs me. Like, it makes me question like what's going on. And then it makes me think that now all of this Greek mythology that, say, I even poured enough energy to like record this episode, all of this knowledge has been based on some disfigured editing, or some kind of intentional corrosion in order to serve a purpose, and obviously to serve nefarious purposes. Like, really, for me it just like bamboozles me. Where are you chicks? Fine, you're at home. Could you write like 4 sentences and like make a little bit of a poem? Like, where are you people? So because I don't question the intelligence of the human race in general, I don't think it is a problem of output or a problem of intelligence. I think it's a question of it being wiped out. And now look at the epistemological crisis that I'm going through. I'm wondering, the knowledge that I'm gathering is also of value or not. Is it bullshit? Now see, imagine a reader going into this kind of a loop. I know it sounds silly, and it is, co- compared to like the real problems of the world. But seriously, like, if we really think about it, I'm reading this book and thinking around this book in these like slightly, I won't say metaphysical, but like trying to think about how this book has been approached and why do we even engage with stories like this. It's honestly, I feel like I'm being punked. Yeah. And I feel like I'm being punked either because I'm living in the world age, the millennia, which is called Kalyug, which is the present age that we are living in. And it is
That's what I
supposed
was
to be
when we were
strife.
talking earlier. That's it. That's the yugas. Yes, sorry. Go ahead, because this is what I was talking about. With we were there's going to be a
Yeah.
bonus. I was talking about ancient aliens, so has to do with the yugas. Please go ahead. I'm excited about this part.
Yeah. So I'm like, am I being punked because I'm unfortunate enough to be living through Kalyug, which is supposed to be an era strife with conflict and wrongdoing and misunderstandings and miscommunication and basically the concept of like purity, authenticity, originality. These kind of concepts have somehow been like buried under a lot of plastic trash. And so I wonder, am I, when it comes to like knowledge, and epistemology is the nature, origin and source of knowledge, am I being like, yeah, epistemologically punked right now? Will I never have any grasp to absolute knowledge just because I'm unfortunate enough to be living in this era? And sometimes I even wonder, because like I said, gods do shenanigans, and whether they personally care about you or not, if they feel like messing with you, they would. So sometimes I wonder that there is goddess Saraswati, who is supposed to be the goddess of knowledge in India, goddess of knowledge, education, academics, all of that. um oh, just an aside, by the way, you know how Indians, if they like kick a book by mistake, they kind of ask for forgiveness from the book. Like, uh, okay, so we.
That's new. I think she's in here.
No, I think I sent you this meme. In the movie Wicked, Jonathan Bailey is dancing on top of like a bunch of books in a library, and then an
Yes,
Indian
yeah.
is like, and an Indian is doing this. So basically, if you like disrespect a book or anything educational related or academic related, it's kind of like you are not giving respect to goddess Saraswati.
That's her.
Oh, yep,
Yeah.
that's her, the OG.
Legendary ladies. This is also an oracle card deck. The artist also, oh, I have the cards as well. Beautiful. But anyway, so I was like, oh, I know
Wonderful.
that one. She's in here.
Yeah, so that's why we ask for forgiveness from the book whenever we like kick it or look at it in a not nice way. We like ask for forgiveness. But basically, I feel like, is goddess Saraswati punking me? Is she like, let me mess with some silly little human who thinks she's knowledgeable just because she's a Sagittarius, and let me like, you know, shake her life a little bit? Now it's kind of like I'm pissed that that is like goddess Saraswati, and again, look at the way I'm thinking. I'm again thinking it of it in a way as if I'm inviting the wrath of a god. Like, I'm thinking that, does goddess Saraswati think that I'm like too high and mighty and like too smart for my own good? And is she trying to teach me a lesson by giving me a knowledge related existential crisis? See, like, look at our programming. And again, because of our programming as well, I'm like, what is free will? What is anything? That's a wrap,
That's
people.
awesome. No, that's great.
That's a wrap. We are done. We are done with this episode. Pen drop.
Awesome. Yeah. So, obviously, we're talking about mythology, and we're just going to go very lightly over the overview of the story because, I mean, first of all, I think y'all need to read it or listen to it. Fantastic audiobook. Shout out Perdita Weeks. Literally, I mean, it's a great book anyway, but she made this because I have the Kindle version and I have the audio and I was listening to the audiobook and she did such a great job. So I actually pictured her as Circe while I was listening to it. And then also when I was going back and like reading it in the text form. But yes, so it's going to be a film. She's going to be in the film, The Odyssey. So this book has a section of it that obviously covers the part that's in Homer's The Odyssey, but it goes from, her birth, her inception, her Titan god father Helios, the god of the sun. So again, he's a Titan. So he is one of like the uncles of the gods on Mount Olympus. And he married because since these more Puritan times, they replaced certain words with the word married um, in a lot of these myths because a lot of these, in a majority of these stories, these women were not married. They were essayed. But this one in particular, they were married anyway. So Helios took a shining to his niece. So Perse is the mother of Circe. She is a naiad, which is like a water nymph, right? So lesser goddesses, right? Still immortal, have some powers. Occasionally they do. She is the daughter of Oceanus, another Titan. Oceanus is the brother of Helios, and Helios has married a number of Oceanus's daughters, begetting, these golden-eyed children because Helios has golden eyes. He's obviously the sun. He's this beautiful, blinding light that only the gods can look directly into. Anyway, there's a lot of incest in Greek mythology and in a lot of mythology. And you know what, too? You know what I liked about this and how this ties into like we read, queer books is they did touch upon some of the stories when they're, some of the gods are talking in some sections where they're just mentioning like what's going on with the other gods at the same time. And I think a lot of the gods, especially the male gods, weren't just queer. They were like pansexual. And which is
That's
great.
the that's the
That's
exact thing I was going to say. I was like, Zeus is not into like chicks or mortals or immortals. No, he's into everything.
but especially cows. And I'll bring that up later too. Zeus loves No, was it Zeus or Helios? All of them. But no, Zeus did and Helios. They loved cows. And I mean, like a little too much. So that's why I'm using the word pansexual because like they did not discriminate. But most of the men, they never, and not that it's bad at all. And I think this is great. This is why I wish maybe we would get back, society, we get back more towards like looking up to these gods, these deities, because they were so much more fluid in their sexuality. Some of them, like, there are stories of gods changing people from one sex to another. So that's really interesting. Anyway, back to the lineage. So Circe's mother is Perse, a water nymph, a naiad. Father is the Titan god Helios. So she's cousins with the gods of Mount Olympus. At this point in the story, when she's born, the gods of Mount Olympus have already taken over. They're like, the top dogs, but they still kind of fear the Titans. So the Titans were the OGs. They were around before Zeus and Hera and all of them were born. The Titans were the original gods whose whose mother was Gaia and Cronus, Father Time and Mother Earth. And so they had all of these children, and basically later on, just in a nutshell, later on, the Zeus kind of caused what do you call, like a mutiny. I don't know, I'm using ship terms, but Zeus and his siblings took over. You probably know the story. His father ate the children because he didn't want any more kids. There was a prophecy that kids were going to kill him. So their father, was their father Cronus? Yeah, I should know this. But anyway, and then they escaped. He got them to throw them up, and Zeus overthrew their dad. And then they took over. So that's where Zeus and Hera, all of them come along. So at this point in the story, the Titans and the Olympian gods are playing nice, but there's still tension. So there's all this there's these niceties, these superficial niceties I feel like that some of these characters had to have, because you don't want to cause upset in between the Titans and the Olympian gods, right? And Circe was used also as a pawn within these two factions as well. But in a nutshell, Circe's doing her thing. She's fascinated with humans. She gets to meet her uncle Prometheus at one point, who's imprisoned for helping bring fire to mankind. And she talks to him because he's the only person that she knows that's ever had interactions with humans. When she was young, she'd never met any humans, right? She was I forget where they're living in the palace of Helios, right? Wherever that is. So this sparks in her a curiosity for humans by talking to Prometheus, who is honest with her about humans and how they are. And so, she always ends up holding this kind of this regard for humans. She doesn't see them really as less than. They're just, different. They don't live as long, and she does. Mhm.
This is this beginning of the story, the way this book begins by Circe, watching Prometheus be tormented and basically like helping him out by giving him a little bit of sustenance. And then when he tells her about humans and how they are, let me tell you, the beginning of this book baited me. I was like, whoa. I was like mystified. I was like, whoa, I'm going to get into a dense, factual, historical amazingness, which has been changed enough from a feminist perspective to not be like traumatizing and triggering. And this is how the book baited me, by mentioning Prometheus right in the first couple of pages. Because, yeah, I do have like a specific affinity towards Prometheus, because as much as gods do shenanigans, sometimes some of them are benevolent as well. Maybe for their own interests, but who knows? Sometimes we benefit. And okay, and fine, let's go a few steps back and talk about who Prometheus is in the first place. So, in Greek mythology, he is one of the Titans. Now, as Katie mentioned, there are Titans who are the older generation of gods, and there are Olympians, the newer generation of gods. War happens, and when old and young have war, what happens? The young bulldozer the old. So, we get a new regime, a new godly heavenly regime. So Zeus is like the king of the gods. He's like the number one Olympian. And yeah, he thinks he's the boss, the alpha. He can do whatever he wants to do. So he is pissed with Prometheus because Prometheus tricked him. Yeah, Prometheus is a supreme trickster, and he's also the god of fire, and he's also a master craftsman. Just think of Prometheus as like a Virgo man. Yeah. So basically, Prometheus, he also has this intellectual side to him. And that's also why he's able to like vibe with humans and vibe with humans enough in order to also be benevolent towards them. His name actually literally means forethinker. Okay, so the whole legend goes that Zeus was jealous of mortals. God knows why. We have nothing going for us, but he's still jealous of us for some reason. The guy has ants in his pants for no reason. So basically, because he's like jealous of us, Zeus hid fire. And because we didn't have fire, we were really suffering. Now, What did Prometheus do? He stole it from Zeus. And why not? It's not like Zeus has to determine what is done to fire or not done to fire. So, yeah, Prometheus is like, YOLO, I'm going to return fire back to Earth once again, Zeus. so, so basically, as a punishment for giving fire to mortals, Prometheus was punished by Zeus in the most dramatic way possible. Like, I have to tell you, this diva Zeus, the kind of emotional and hormonal regulation that this dude has, I mean, it is at such a dismal level, as dismal as 2026 elected representatives. But anyway, so what Zeus does is this dramatic, unstable weirdo who thinks he's the king of the world, and maybe he is, I don't know. He punishes Prometheus by giving him an immortal, regrowing liver, and Prometheus will be chained to a mountain called the Caucasus. That is in Asia. So currently, Prometheus is on some cold, cold mountain. He's chained to some cold, cold mountain in the Caucasus, and there is an eagle constantly pecking at his liver while his liver regrows. I mean, look at the originality of punishments. I have to give it to you. Coming up with an idea like, I'll chain you to a mountain, I will make your organ keep regrowing, but one animal will keep pecking it every day, and this will go on for eternity. Like, should we give kudos to Zeus for this kind? I bet he stole this idea. I bet Hera was like, you know what? Let's like torture Prometheus like this. And Zeus like, my idea. I'm going to chain him to a mountain, call upon, summon an eagle, and make that eagle eat his liver all the time. I know he stole the idea from someone. See, this is what knowledge existential crisis is. You question everything in life. But anyway, if you want to meet Prometheus, please go to the modern occupied areas of Russia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. He's there somewhere waiting.
Still there. Yep.
Still
Paying for
there
his
somewhere.
crime.
And the last thing about Prometheus that I really like want to speak about is the 2012 Prometheus movie in the Alien series. And in that, if you remember, Michael Fassbender plays a thinking machine, basically an AI. And in that movie, like that movie really chilled my bones. And I
I
think
love that
that
movie
movie
so
was
much,
the
by the way.
juncture. That movie is amazing. That movie was the juncture where like my ability to question became like really solidified, where I kind of understood that you have to ask why, and asking why is very important. So in this movie, Michael Fassbender, he's an AI. They are in a spaceship going on an intergalactic journey for research, scientific purposes. But Michael Fassbender, the AI, the human crew in the spaceship, they are constantly disdainful towards him. They constantly ridicule him, bully him. They have this sense of contempt towards him, like you're inorganic matter and we are superior organic matter. And that is when Michael Fassbender, he asks one of the crew, one of the human crews, like, if you hate me so much, why did you create me? And that human crew member says, because we can. Like, l- so this again for me, it makes me think that there was no sense of intentionality, no sense of care, no sense of prudence exercised in order to create something. It is just an arrogant, we can, so we did. And you know what? We don't care. We are probably indifferent. So I think, like, what if our makers are also like this? We could, so we did it. Does that
Well,
mean we have?
yeah, and spoilers, if you haven't seen the movie, light spoilers, the same thing ends up happening to the humans later when they meet their creators. I mean, honestly, like, they're like, oh, well, you're not shit. And Charlize Theron's father, who actually set this whole thing up, Mr. Wayland, because he wanted to find their creators, because he was, if you guys are watching this now, we had this whole conversation when we started recording. I'm actually making to an extra about my theories about where humanity came from and religion and all this stuff. Anyway, the Mr. Wayland was, he had these researchers, these scientists looking and going all around the world, like, and they were finding all of these cave paintings and sculptures that looked the same. It was, these people with these very large tall beings pointing to a certain pointing towards these dots in the sky, which were it's a constellation. So the underlying thing this whole time, where the human crew didn't know until later on, was that Mr. Whalen was actually alive and actually on the ship. And he set up this whole thing to find, because he wanted to find their creators. They end up finding their creators, and it's the same thing. They end up, getting killed by their creators. And even Mr. Wayland is directly killed by one of them, because, he's like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to this omnipotent being who created us. And then it's like, what the hell are you doing here? And like, thwack, and he dies. Sorry for spoilers, but I'll mark this on I'll mark this, this point, spoilers. If you haven't seen Prometheus, please go see it. Anyway, it's the same thing with David. And, he's created by these humans, but he's still treated as other and less than. And just the way that the aliens treated the humans when they met them. And so it's, yeah, why are we hated by our creators? And then David ends up doing the same damn thing, pretty much. You got to watch the sequel. Alien Covenant. A lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. And then David's trying to play God, and I won't give any spoilers about that. I'm also really pissed off because, people didn't like the second movie, so they didn't make the third movie. The third movie has this whole, like, I got to read it again, but this amazing sounding plot. It was supposed to be a trilogy. But also, if you guys didn't know, Prometheus and all these, see, I get on my tangents. I love the Alien franchise. So it's part of the Alien franchise. So you got to watch those first. Then you have to watch Alien Earth that just came out on Hulu. Season 2 is coming out later this year. And then you can watch Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. Anyway, going off on tangents. But yeah, sorry, go ahead and finish about, with Prometheus and Zeus being jealous of humans, and, or if we're
Yeah, so
past that.
this
Yeah.
this beginning of the book baited me. I'm like, whoa, I'm gonna learn about cool concepts with no violence, especially gender-based violence. But nope, this book duped me. This book duped me, put me in one book-related funk, and that's why today you have this highly incensed, angry, not angry, highly incensed and philosophically tired Shaggy.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Circe was, she was a lot more empathetic, just overall, compared to, her siblings, her peers, right? And obviously she cared about humans. She ends up meeting humans. She is banished to her own island, Aiaya, because she ends up kind of accidentally finding out that she's a witch. She can make people change. She can make things change. And her 3 siblings end up having this power of harnessing, what is it, pharmacae, they call it?
Yes.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's spelled with a PH, so it looks like the Latin-based word, I guess,
Pharmacy.
of the word pharmacy about
Yeah.
medicine, right? But they're able to
Yep.
work with plants and herbs and things. Now, each one has their own specialty, but Circe can turn other gods and people into things. So, for example, she's banished because she turned her cousin Scylla into Scylla, which is what we know is, this. Well, and I'll cut real quick. I have it right here. And I'll put a picture on the screen. Scylla and Charybdis. So Charybdis wasn't in ours, but Scylla, she had like a bunch of heads, and so there's like, it's like female heads on this like serpent necks. And remember, she would hang off the rocks. There was a channel that, a lot of the boats would go through to reach the different islands. I don't remember where, but it was a major like waterway. It was a major thoroughfare, I guess, for ships. So she decided to hang after she was turned into this monster that Circe turned her into, because Circe was jealous of her for going after Circe's crush. She turned her into this. Circe was then banished to her own island. I know I'm giving a real bad like TLDR. So she has her own island. First, she's ticked because she's away from everybody. Like even though everybody treated her like crap, in Helios's palace, even her, her mom wasn't very nice to her. No one was very nice to her besides her little brother, who she helped raise. She's banished to this island. And at first she's like, this sucks. I'm all alone. But then they've given her this beautiful big home and just food that what's the word? Replenishes itself every day. And then she finds out she's bored. So then she gets more into working with herbs and learning more about the magic and everything. And she realizes, you know what? I can do whatever I want here. This is amazing. I love having my own time. I don't have to deal with the bullshit of those other like petty, jealous gods. She still feels bad for turning Scylla into a monster. But then again, was Scylla always a monster? Because Scylla was kind of, what. Anyway, I'm going to plug back in. She turned her crush into a god because she didn't want him to die. Well, he never ended up loving her anyway. So she did all of this for him. And what I got from majority of the story was she just kept doing for others and was either completely it was unacknowledged, or she was walked all over and treated like crap. And so honestly, when she makes her kind of like, I don't know, villain turn later on in the story, when she's realizing that, occasionally these ships full of sailors who are out on their voyages end up on her shore to rest and replenish. First she's excited. She's like, ooh, humans, she likes humans. But unfortunately, the first boatload of them, and this took a turn I was not expecting either. It was a lot. She invites them into her home and she reveals that, she's alone. Technically, she wasn't alone. Her island also then was used by the gods to punish their, nymph daughters for doing things they didn't like. So like, you know what, we're going to send you off you're going to go live with your cousin Circe on Bad Girl Island, and you're going to learn your lesson. And Circe's like, what the hell are you doing? You're sending all these like, like dumb young things to my house, to my island. And so she's told them, okay, fine, you all have rooms. Just leave me alone. Let me do my stuff. Let me do my herb magic, my workings. So she sends them away, especially when the ship comes in. But the ship comes in and she's entertaining all these men, and she just loves watching humans. She loves interacting with them. They don't know that she's a goddess, right? Now, she ends up getting into a kind of a predicament when she reveals to them that she's alone. So meaning there's no man. They realize that she doesn't have a husband or a son watching over things. And so unfortunately, the ship's captain decides to take advantage of Circe. And that's one thing I don't remember being in the book, and it's not in the audiobook, is really feel like they need to have a trigger warning because it's kind of graphic, you know? But
And also
unfortunately, Mhm.
in a world where we are constantly hearing about you know, like civilization and apocalypse and end of things and all of that. And then you read about harrowing gender based criminality And it's like, and see, again, why am I having this existential crisis? Because even back then, this isn't even BC's. This is like way before our concept of time. This was still happening? Like what? And now I'm wondering, has this text been changed? Was she really so helpless? Was she really so people pleasing? Was she really someone who was so ready for everyone to walk all over her? Or has she been made into this character? Whether it's being a helpless damsel or when she rises in her power, becoming a villainess. I don't know. Is this wrong? Like, am I reading again? Am I reading inauthentic things? Is
Well, I
all
know
the
that
knowledge wrong?
yeah. Well, Madeline Miller, it seems that I read that, she did a lot of research. So there's not a ton just on Circe because she's part of so many other stories. So she took those stories where Circe was mentioned, most notably the Odyssey, and said like what happened if this was the actual case. And so it's not her turning her cousin into this hideous drooling monster that eats men. That's not her villain origin story. It's this first
Yeah.
this instance of SA. And so what she does is she, and I mean, if you're familiar with the Odyssey, I don't know if you we had to read it in high school. I read the cliff notes, but if you've seen them, there's a film that was out ages ago. It was so good. It was a TV miniseries. I liked it. You think that she's just this bad witch and anyone comes onto her shores and she turns men into pigs. She did that because of this. So this interaction, she had to
Yeah.
get rid of these
Because
guys.
of
And so
violence.
she kind of like accidentally, it was first like kind of accidentally. I don't think she didn't mean to turn them into pigs, but she was still kind of figuring out what she could do in her powers. And she turns them into pigs, which is great because then she's got, she's been raising animals already. Like she's gotten into that. She also has this like really badass tiger, right? Tiger as her
Yeah.
companion. I mean, it's so cool. She just goes like, like really leans into this, um, like this rural, wild lifestyle now, right? And doing a lot of things herself besides like making food. She doesn't have to make food because technically she doesn't even really have to eat because she's, an immortal. But anyway, so she keeps the pigs on her island. And then because of this incident, most of the ships that come through, unfortunately, the men are all the same and try to pull the same shit, but she already knows it. She's expecting it every single time. So let's just say she acquires more and more pigs for her little farm she has going on, and she is very anti-man. I mean, human, but male human, and rightly so, because almost every single group of them that comes tries to physically take advantage of her. And she's like feeding them and giving them wine and yada, yada. I mean, she gives them wine specifically on purpose now because this is what she infuses with her herbal concoction to be able to turn them into pigs. It's in the wine. And of course, these guys are going to accept the wine. They're like, oh man, like free wine. We were just on the ship for like months with nothing. But then shit, what's his name? I can't even think. The Mr.
No,
Playboy.
this
Mhm.
book also pissed me off so much because violence towards women, it's almost like it's historically canon. But when was the last time I read a story where a man became a villain, had a villain origin story because of gender based violence specifically against that man? Have I read even one story like that? I don't think so. And I have read, I mean, I can say I have read quite a lot, but why have I not read this scenario ever? That gender based violence against a man changes his life altogether. It
Mhm.
changes the trajectory of his life. It changes. how he evolves later on as a character only because of gender-based violence. Like, have you read a book like this? I don't think so. People in the comments, tell me, is this historical canon of, again, why am I having knowledge existential crisis? That is it expected historically, canonically, that gender-based violence against women is okay? Like, it's, and this is where I like recently read a quote, which the quote goes like, when privilege is a norm, equality starts to feel like oppression. So am I reading POVs of privileged assholes and wasting my time? Am I
Well,
accepting his am I accepting historical canons which have probably changed the way I operate in this world, which has impacted the way society interacts with itself? Like, whatever.
well, I mean, ultimately, it's about Circe and her finding herself and who she truly is. But I
But
really, I,
even then, I'm like, how is it? That's what I feel like the origin genesis of knowledge in Kali Yuga is just contaminated. If you think you know, you don't know anything.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
I would say the one of the major parts of the story is when, Odysseus from the Odyssey finds his way to her island and seeks refuge and, rest and solace for his men. And she's expecting the same thing to happen, but she notices, he's different. He doesn't react to the fine things she has. A lot, anytime the other sailors would come, they'd be like, "Oh wow,
Wow.
these are so nice. Oh, look at this." So they think that she's, some rich, wealthy woman that they can take advantage of. He doesn't see any of that. And it's so you just finished it. It's been like 3 or so weeks for me, so I forget some of the small details, but nobody made a move on her, right? No one and that's why she was surprised, because no one from the crew made
Yeah.
a move on her, and he was like respectful, right? And so she let him stay, and he kind of like she let him in, unfortunately. And see, this is another good lesson. She let him into her heart. First he gained her trust. She still knew, though. She knew that he could still be kind of a slippery fish. She could tell ways that he was subtly manipulating her, right? And it was for his own gain. It wasn't anything bad, but he was using he and his men were using their resources on the island, and eventually using Circe. Like, did he really feel anything for her, or was it just really nice to have a woman to go to bed with every night, even though he talked, like, all he would do is talk about his wife. Oh, Penelope this and oh, Penelope that. And yet, like, he's sleeping with Circe, and he keeps extending his stay. I mean, she wants him to. She wants him to stay. She's hooked, unfortunately. She's in love again. She doesn't like outwardly say it. She's, trying to, it's like nowadays, it's like a situationship. She's trying to be cool. She doesn't want to scare him off. He keeps staying. She keeps doing all this stuff for him. There's no label, right? And he's taking advantage of this. And because then for her, she's like, okay, this feels good. I'm getting companionship. I'm getting this and this and this. They have great chats. It's just everything but, let's say, the ring, right? Not that the ring is the end all be all, trust me. But yet he's talking about his wife like all the time. But also, we have to look at it this
It
way.
didn't stop
Again,
Zeus in anywhere.
yeah, exactly. It was we majority of the time, unless it's like Hera, or Hera or Aphrodite, you know, big main goddess. The women are never allowed to get their cookies. Oh, God forbid Penelope find another husband, with part of the Odyssey when uh, Odysseus has been gone for so long. Also, because he was just hanging out with, Circe, he could have been home a lot sooner. All of these men from, neighboring lands come and they want to because Odysseus was a prince, so he was up for the throne. Therefore, Penelope, his wife, would also be part of that package. So they want to take over and, be the ruler. So she has all these men vying for her hand, and she goes, "No, I'm still faithful to my husband, who's been up to who knows what." So that too. I mean, I like that they pointed it out in the story. I enjoy this. I love it when they're like, "Look at these awful men," you know. What's changed?
Honestly,
So
I want all of this literature to be burnt. Yeah. Now, now I know why. What is the what should I say? I mean, the way book banning and book burning works, it's not right. But but
wait, you mean like the old ancient texts, or you mean this text?
I think all ancient texts, I think all of them need to like just be decimated. Yeah. Because we keep deriving these lessons, these morals, these values, these philosophies and ways of violence being okay. I think we just keep repeating that because we have put all of these texts on some pedestal, whereas they are just probably ugly stories, not worth saying, like not worth retelling, not worth retelling for millennia altogether. I don't so, someone needs to burn this.
Well, so what you're saying is that the Great Fire of Alexandria didn't do its job. They didn't.
It
They didn't
didn't do
destroy
its job.
the
Yes, it did
text.
not do its job.
Well, on the other hand, I blame humankind, but specifically men, for instead of taking these stories as lessons of what not to do, they took them as lessons of, oh, I can get away with this. That's where I think I see where you're coming from, but I think that we went about it the wrong way of looking at these stories and these parables and like, oh, well, Zeus did this, so I can do this, Zeus and Helios can fall in love with a cow. A cow. We're talking about bestiality here. Like, come on, guys. Are these people like, well, not people, are these gods like worth looking up to? Like, ew. Anyway,
Do we
and like,
that's
disguise.
what, do we need to
Uh,
retell these stories? Are we learning anything by retelling these stories? I think not. I think we are just having reconfirmations and being able to justify our shenanigans because, oh, people better than us do this. So, I mean, we are just byproducts of those superior beings. Yeah, this is just an excuse to keep repeating the same bullshit that has been going on. And so now that I've realized history can be rewritten, history can be burnt as well.
Jesus. We're gonna get on a list, man. They're gonna put us on a list. But also the other
and
thing I wanted to point go ahead.
and this is the funny thing about being a reader, that it makes you, it can like, how good, it's like if you're a reader and you love books, you kind of start to understand like when they need to be a little destroyed as well. it's a huge spectrum of feelings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
this is, the literary world gives you a huge spectrum of feelings.
Exactly. But all right, so we'll wrap it up. I don't want to give too much away for the end of the book, but it was really good. Let's just say she finds herself. I think that when we got to see that Odysseus was, as we thought, a boy.
Yep.
Uh, as soon as he left, Circe on her island, and I kind of don't want to say what else happened with Circe. I'd kind of like to leave that up to, it's worth watching. I mean, it's worth listening to or reading. Odysseus went off and then landed on another island and hooked up with another goddess. And like for some reason she wanted to keep him too. So Circe thought that she was it besides his wife Penelope.
Mm,
And who knows who
nope.
else he messed around with before her. And then Penelope, faithful wife, is there when he comes back and he's a changed man. He's awful.
Sure.
And then And
Oh,
then she's like, I waited for this. So, you know what? I'd rather be a Circe and learn the lesson than be a Penelope and learn the lesson too late. You know, you spent all your time. You didn't get your cookies for all these years. You know, Penelope was celibate as far as we know, Odysseus' wife when he was gone. And she comes back and he probably has all kinds of STDs. He has a kid that he doesn't know about that Penelope finds out about later, another child. But obviously,
yeah.
back then, this isn't uncommon because, again, it was fine for men to do this. But if Penelope had hooked up with someone while he was gone and had a child, they'd all be dead. And I do agree with you. We know it too. There are great works out there that we're now finding out that were from that weren't written by the male authors. It was written by their wives, or at least the ideas were for their wives or girlfriends or mistresses. Just like potentially, I don't know if you heard about this, but they're saying The Great Gatsby may have
Yes.
been Zelda's.
You know, actually, when you mentioned Penelope and how, like, her life, the way her life is, suddenly in my head, Daisy Buchanan came out. Because even Daisy Buchanan, she chooses that easy life and is kind of numb to her circumstances. And again, chooses to be numb when it comes to her circumstances, even after something life changing happens. It's an old book,
Mhm.
but again, the twist that
I think
happens,
everybody's read it or
it
seen the
is.
movie.
Yeah, it is life changing. But then again, even
Mhm.
after a life changing event, Daisy Buchanan continues on that path of safe numbness that she has developed for herself. And I think Penelope is like Daisy is definitely a derivative of Penelope. But yeah, Great Gatsby, Zelda Fitzgerald's entire body of work just regurgitated, not even in a good way, to produce a classic called The Great Gatsby. I mean, I don't know. So again, goes back to show that, you know what, the poet who was writing these verses about Penelope, were they writing just as far as their imagination could take them? Like, what if their imagination was so limited that they couldn't even think of say Penelope doing shenanigans, or not even doing shenanigans, having her own
That's it.
goals, her own ambitions, her own desires,
Yeah.
and taking action towards them. So that is why I'm fed up with Kalyug knowledge.
Yes. Well, that's why I say that people should read this because it has a spin on it shows, it shows the behind the scenes of the Odyssey and other stories that they show up in, but specifically this part that was in part of the Odyssey. And because again, Penelope is in Circe and we get to know more about her and just in Circe, because I forget how the Odyssey actually ends. But I'll find out when I watch the movie this summer. July 17th in theaters, that she kind of realizes she wasted her life. And that's why she ends up staying on Ayaya because she's like, oh my God, I have autonomy. Like, yeah, I don't care
Yeah.
that, I'm willing to let my son go off and have his journeys. I think she's relieved to be rid of her husband and, no spoilers. I won't say what happened,
Decentering.
but yes. And
Decentering.
that's why I think that people should read this. And also, I do want to say too, they do feature some other women that, these women with bad reps in Greek mythology, like or these tragic heroines that were done dirty by men, and ultimately their downfall is because of men. Specifically speaking about Ariadne, she was the sister of the Minotaur in that, you know, Greek mythology tale. And Medea, she's another witch. They're both nieces of Circe. I don't think Ariadne did anything. She didn't have any, she didn't realize her powers, but Medea also took on the whole witch vibe. And so we get to learn a little bit more about them. And so now I want to read Ariadne and Medea. They're not by Madeline Miller. I forget. Jennifer Saint wrote them, and I heard they're very good. So those are probably going to be ones that I read or listen to in the near future. And I liked that they brought up these other women in the book, and all of them screwed over by men. Every single one of them. I mean, yeah, you could say, oh, well, shame on them for trusting the men. But for all of them, it was like their first love. And, these men are pledging their undying loyalty when in actuality, they were using these women. Every single one of the men did, as a means to an end. And, we don't find out what happens to all of the men, but the ones we do find out about, like, their lives ended up sucking, and rightly
Oh,
so.
yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, it's a very empowering book. Just, warnings of essay. There was a section where I was like, okay, this is kind of long. Like they could have cut. What I think that the only critique I'll give is, I think there were too many chapters. There was too much of the time when Odysseus and his men were on the island and just stupid stuff they were doing. Like the one guy that kept like sleeping up on the roof of this one, like the shed or something. And then he's always up there. I mean, I know he's looking for ships, but he like goes up there when he's really drunk and he falls over and dies. And it's just like, what? Okay. Like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of that could have been cut. I got kind of bored in that. I guess, yeah,
Yeah,
it was like starting at the last third of the book. And it was just,
exactly. I was stuck over there. I was stuck at that
Mhm.
last third. I was like, when is this going to end?
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't until Odysseus finally left that it got good again. And then when Penelope and
Yeah.
Telemachus, Odysseus's wife and son, show up on the shores of Aiaia looking for Circe. Um, and all that boring section 2 was, a lot of it was, obviously this is all told from Circe's perspective. It was just her simping for him. And I was like, girl, he's gonna leave eventually. Like, he doesn't love you. I mean, maybe he
And
he
you're a
loves the
god.
feelings. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
a god. He's a mortal.
And he's immortal. And look at all this stuff that these goddess or demigoddess women did for these men.
Which again makes me think, were they really like this? Were they really simps? Were they really like this? I don't know. Or is the author writing this kind of like a messed up person and they are just warping it in a messy way?
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
don't know. Like, seriously.
specifically, the Odyssey was written by Homer, a guy. And I was when you were saying what really happened and who really wrote this, I do believe Homer wrote this, because he gets it's like his fan fiction. Again, it's a piece of fan fiction. He's writing his fantasies. So,
Yes,
Odysseus has
exactly.
this beautiful, faithful wife at home, and the first child they have is this perfect son right there. And then he goes off and, like, there's these beautiful sirens like luring his men. Another like kink right there, kink fantasy. Then, goes off to Circe. And I believe in the original story, it was Circe seduced him. Circe made him stay.
Exactly.
No, she didn't. And so it's again, oh, he couldn't help it. And oh, like, look at this beautiful witch goddess luring him in and turning his men into pigs and holding him hostage. And then Odysseus ends up finally going back home after so many years, and his wife's been waiting for him, and she didn't marry the other guys. This was absolutely written. The Odyssey was written by a man, no doubt. Like, no woman fantasizes about this stuff. So, even back then, I don't think so. Or Penelope was probably like hooking up with one of her like handmaids or something like that. Because like I said, back then, which was totally cool, they were a lot more like free and open, and being queer wasn't a thing. It was just people. And but it was still more common, or you hear about more so the men doing it, because probably the women, especially when they were married, were
And
not
also
allowed.
these like messed up poets and authors like Homer who are writing just a very base form of fan fiction where they are trying to like bring about an idea of heroism when it comes to certain characters they resonate with. Like, I can imagine Homer being like, I'm Odysseus, and all of that. So I'm wondering, these people like Homer and a lot of other poets who canonized all of these works, codified all of these works, like, I think, what if even the whole idea that sailors on a ship going to Circe's island will naturally and almost by default be violent. They will almost by default be grabbers and opportunists and just horrendous humans with no human decency. And now I'm thinking, is that always the case? Or maybe an author like Homer probably had what is even today applicable and called the whore Madonna concept. That
Mm-hmm.
women are either objects of desire, and you can be careless and reckless and impulsive and selfish and heinous and not have any sense of reasonable care towards this whore concept, which is the object of desire, while you take an exceptional group of Madonnas, the pure women, let's say the pure nurturers of life, a mother, a grandmother, a daughter, a sister, and now you take the Madonna concept, where these are also objects, but not of desire, but of value, of caregiving value. So they see the whore and the Madonna are still objects. They are just fulfilling different functions. I think maybe they just had a Madonna whore complex. Maybe that's how they looked at women. And that's how they wrote their fan fiction based on this concept. That either, you know, you you're a woman, you will still be an object. It's just that how do we treat your objectification? How
Mm-hmm.
we, the majority, the alpha, how we treat your objectification and the value you receive based on our discretion of your objectification. And this is why also, this is just an aside, but in companies in India, there are mandatory prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace training sessions that take place. And in one of the organizations that I worked in, or not even one, I have seen vibes, similar vibes of what I'm going to speak about across organizations, especially whenever a sexual harassment training takes place. So generally, it is explained to the men in the room that don't be inappropriate towards women, because imagine if she was your mom, or imagine if she was your daughter, or imagine if she was your sister, and think, would you be inappropriate towards them? This exceptional, pure Madonnas who are virginal in quality, nurturers, caregivers, sacrificial, having no sense of I, me, and myself, just there for to take care of you. So, so like so this is the example that would be given to men. Like, imagine, or also imagine that if you're looking inappropriately at a coworker, imagine she's also someone's daughter and mother and grandmother and sister and all of that. And this stupid, highly reductive reprimand, according to me, has made it possible to not look at women through the lens of basic human decency. This kind of a reprimand, that imagine the Madonnas in your life, so you don't treat the whores as whores. Imagine the Madonnas to not be terrible towards the whores. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this highly reductive and I think highly damaging statement that has been made in even trying to explain people what sexual harassment is and why it should not take place in the workplace or in anywhere in the world. So I would say this highly illogical statement makes it possible to afford basic human decency only to the exceptional group of amazing women who take care of you, but don't have respect for others, or only keep imagining your Madonnas so that you don't like treat your hoes like hoes. So yes, now I'm worried. I'm worried that a brilliant author like Madeline Miller had to had to take inspiration from these historical canons, and even in trying to change them, the internal quality of this historical canon is so corroded that you can't correct it.
Yeah, exactly. That was a really good soapbox. I can't wait to make that into a clip. I'm just
No,
thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm
because
gonna have to Google if we can say whore on YouTube.
oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. No, it's stupid. It's so stupid that we have to be censored for talking. We're not calling anyone that. We're using it in this term, and because the Madonna whore complex is a thing, and that's also is like I get pissed that we have to be so censored, even and especially when we're talking about stuff that affects us. We're saying it. So if I'm saying it, I should be allowed to say it. You know what I mean? Anyway,
Yeah.
it's fine.
And
But no,
also
no,
because
no.
I was
We should. This is something we
all
need to talk about.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also because I was speaking about prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace laws in India. People of India, organizations, please be compliant of the laws of our land. And most importantly, do not use damaging and regressive examples like this. Because imagine, Katie, if I tell you, don't look at the crotch of your male coworker because you know what? The providers in your life, your father, your brother, your husband, your grandfather, they also have the same swimsuit parts. Would you stare at
Swimsuit
their
parts.
would you stare at their swimsuit parts? Imagine that your coworker is one of them, is one of the Madonnas of your life. And hence don't be inappropriate towards your male coworkers. Okay? Now
That
can you
was
see the
good.
absurdity? Can you see the absurdity of like I'm sure if I was saying this to like a group of women in a room, they would start laughing. They would start laughing because we can just not even at a base level resonate with something like this. Not affording human decency to humans.
Mhm.
So seriously.
No, exactly. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, listening to our soapboxes. I like I said, I recommend the book. It was awesome. Again, if you get a chance to listen to the audiobook, it was so much fun. And Shaggy, what's your ultimate rating of the book? And be honest.
No, I'm being super honest. See, the thing with good pieces of art is that they evoke a lot of emotions. And it just so happens that this piece of art, Circe by Madeline Miller, evoked a lot of emotions in me, which are not typically light and frothy and joyful and optimistic and all of that. But it shook me. Like I have been shooketh. People, anyone going through an existential crisis similar to mine, either God fatigue or knowledge related, please let me know. Am I the only one? Am I the only one spiraling at 2 a.m. thinking nothing is real? Can you please
I love it.
can you please let me know that I'm not alone?
Yes, that's great. Oh, well, that wraps up today's mythological adventure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Next time, we will be back with another book, another debate, and lots of other scholarly soapboxes, rants, just beautiful vocal exercises, all socio-political and economic related, of course. And yeah, until then, just be careful, be safe. It's 2026. You don't need a god to do shenanigans to have a messy life. Just be alive in this reality. YOLO. Okay, bye everyone. I'm done. This is a wrap.
If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe. Follow us here on YouTube and on Instagram. Shaggy does an amazing job of curating some awesome posts
Thank you
like
so
every
much.
day. Share this with a friend who also would enjoy incestuous and dramatic Greek family feuds. And yeah, I guess I don't even remember what we're reading next, but we'll figure that out. And
Oh, yes. And
yeah.
no, for this one, I'm keeping my hands off of choosing a book because I know I played like an influential role in Circe being chosen after Wuthering Heights for our April book. But no, now I'm hands off. Now I'm like, I'm not putting myself in another crisis. I
Yeah, but
want
that puts
someone,
the pressure on me now.
yeah, I want someone else to put me in a crisis. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe it might be time for us to finally we try to give a different genre a turn each month. It might be time for us to circle back to romance, smutty
Hmm.
romance comedy. Oh, it
Our
was so
origin
bad.
story,
Yeah. Something
the
real weird.
Gemini
I think we should
child,
do that.
the Gemini child that this
Yes.
podcast is. Oh, sorry.
That's it. Yeah, let's do something real weird next time. So it'll just be like,
Yes.
stupid men, probably maybe like reverse harem again. I liked that. Maybe some like weird like mythological creature kind of smut. That would be cool.
Yep. And reverse harem, definitely. I think we
Yes.
should always do reverse harems for our birthday.
It's very empowering. But give us
Huge.
suggestions also in the comments. I really would like to hear. I love when friends like send us reels of like, recommending books, especially these crazy wild like, smutty ones written by women, which it's fun. Like women have really good imaginations, and it's just nice. We can all explore our different fantasies. I'm not going to judge like that milking the minotaur. I don't think we're going to read that. I just don't think I can do that.
No, I
I'm
don't
going to draw the
like
line.
that.
The milking the minotaur. Anyway, until then, remember, if the gods invite you to dinner, maybe check the fine print first. We will see you all next time.